Are you a football fan? Have you ever have you ever found yourself wondering what in the world was that ref thinking? Well, Mike D, the referee, is here to help you. Join me on Whistle Talk as I talk to professionals on the field and in the booth to help you understand what is going on inside the mind of a football official. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next episode of Whistle Talk. It's Mike D, the referee, coming to you from New Jersey. And tonight got a little bit of a different kind of show, which I've been trying to do the whole time, keep it a little bit fresh and a little bit different each and every time. But before we dive into and introduce our guests, ladies and gentlemen, if you're liking the show and liking what you're listening to, please hit those like buttons, hit those subscribe buttons. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button there. All those things are for free. Again, from what I've been told, it helps with the algorithms of trying to get our word out there to other officials, other rookie officials, veteran officials, just coaches too, about what we do. And if you are liking what you're seeing and listening to, here's my link. You can always buy me a coffee. On my site, it actually says buy me a beer. It's buymeacoffee.com/Mike D, the referee. And I got to give a cheers here. I got my Whistle Talk mug here with my beer. I'm off from work tomorrow. So, Eric, this one's for you. I thank you for that. So if anybody else likes what they're listening to, and it's just an easy way to support, that one will cost you. That one's not for free, buying me a beer. I'm an expensive drinker. No, I'm just kidding. It's just something to show a little bit of support. And lastly, before I introduce everybody, I want to say thank you to all the veterans that are out there. We're recording this show the night before Veterans Day, so I want to put a big heartfelt thank you to all the veterans that are out there. I know that we have some coaches and some officials that are out there that are veterans. So thank you for everything that you have done for us to get us here to be able to talk on some crazy type of podcast like this. So happy Veterans Day to all, and more so just thank you all. So with that, let me kind of pass it over to our guest tonight. What we're going to be doing tonight is we have on one first-year official, and myself and two other more experienced officials are hopefully going to help enlighten and bring some information to our newer person out on the field with us. So with that, I'll let Joel start us off.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. So this is my 38th year of officiating football. I got started, when I was 2. No, just kidding. Got started when I was 20 years old. And I did, of course, I went through, did the biddy and the midget league and junior high and freshman JV, high school varsity, Friday night lights. And I did that for about 18 years. And then in conjunction, my last 8 years with high school, I was lucky enough to get into an NCAA Division II. So I was kind of doing both, work a Friday night game and then go travel and work a small college game on Saturday. And then, I was lucky enough to, I applied to some various, D1 conferences, and I was lucky enough to get pulled up into the Mid-American Conference, and worked 5 years in the MAC, and then, was pretty successful and, got some looks, and then got a call one day, which, shocked me. I was actually out on the golf course when I got the call that they were going to bring me up into the Big Ten Conference. And so I've been in the Big Ten Conference I'm actually in my 14th season. So, as the season winds down, this will be 14. So I've been very blessed, very lucky. They always say it's hard to get there, but they also say that it's even harder to stay there. So I have been extremely lucky, and I'm very blessed to be where I'm at. This is a great avocation, phenomenal men and women in this thing that we call profession or an avocation, and I'm now happy to be here. So thank you for the invite.
Now, what position are you working with the Big Ten?
I'm a deep wing, so I've worked. I'm currently working side judge. I've been a side judge for probably about 7 or 8 years, but before that I was a field judge. So same position, just the other side of the field. But yeah, I've been a deep wing all through my Division One. Well, actually, Division Two and Division One. I've always been a deep wing. When I worked high school, I was a head linesman, but deep wing at the college level.
All right, thank you. And Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm in between Joel and Eric. I didn't start officiating till I was 43, and I wish I had. And I often tell people, and kind of why I got into recruiting, is that I played ball up through D3, played 11 years of ball, from midget through high school through college. Loved the game, but nobody ever said when I graduated, "Hey, Dan, you want to be an official?" Never thought about it. And it just, I'm this like 2000, what was it, 05, 06. And, I'm just loving football, talking about football, huge fan. And, my wife says, "Well, did you ever think about going on the field or something similar?" I'm like, "Oh, what the heck, guys?" So I found a place where the PIAA was giving a test. And back in the old days, you couldn't do it online. They gave it 4 times a year. You had to find a high school. You went into a big room. You took the test, and I passed. And that was my first year. And then in 2019, I after having done NCAA clocks for a Division III conference, I decided I want to try and get on the field. And I was hired into an association of officials who works D3. And I have been doing that for 5 years on the field. COVID for us was they canceled the season. So it's 6 years ago. But I've got 5 years on the field. So this is my 17th year on the field.
Okay. And are you still working with the PIAA at all? Or are you just working with
the... No, I am the District 11 rules interpreter.
Okay.
For high school, for PIAA. And and I still work for them. And Joel's mentioned, I get to work on Friday, and then I get to wake up really early and drive to crew breakfast somewhere and hope it's less than 3 hours of a drive and then do a game.
So, Joel, I forgot to mention, and we got Terrence finally jumping on. Oh man, he's got that Eagles jersey on right now. So, okay. Terrence, we're just going over some introductions. Joel, where were you based out of before getting into the Big Ten? What high school, what state were you working through?
I live in Northern Ohio. I'm from Fremont, Ohio, up by between Toledo and Cleveland. So the Ohio High School Athletic Association, OHSAA.
All right. And Dan, PIAA, I understand what that means, but for the listeners out there that might not understand what the PIAA is.
Yep. Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic Association.
Okay. So we got some Ohio, we got some Pennsylvania. Eric, I'm going to skip over you. We got Terrence. Terrence is, like I mentioned, Terrence is a local guy here from New Jersey. Terrence and I have actually go back many years. I actually had an opportunity to coach Terrence for a year in college, and then I don't know if he liked my coaching style. He ended up transferring out to one of our rivals, but I've known him and his family for a long time, and then through the coaching ranks. And Terrence, why don't you introduce yourself to all of our listeners and give a little background of your refereeing experience?
Hey, how you doing tonight, guys? I am my 4th year as a side judge. I'm from Long Branch, New Jersey. I'm an educator. I've been teaching for 24 years. Before I got into referee, I coached at Long Branch High School with Danny George for 21 years.
And what position do you work? You said short wing, right?
No, I'm a deep wing side judge.
You're a deep wing also?
Yes.
And Dan, what position were you in?
I'm a short wing. I'm mostly head linesman in high school, and I'm an H in NCAA.
All right. And last but not least, we got on somebody that has hit me up and talked about on Facebook about looking for experiences for newer and younger officials. So I kind of piggybacked off of his ideas and brought in people of different experience levels.
I appreciate
Eric,
everything you do
welcome
for us
to the show.
Officials and everyone else as well. But I'm Eric Sopher. I am in Central Illinois. This was my first year officiating. Kind of decided to get into it. I have 2 daughters, so if I had boys, I'd probably get more coaching. But I played football up until I was 34, so I wanted to be involved with the game after I had to leave. Time gets us all. But as far as positions, I'm a first year guy, so I fill in on a lot of crews. I'm not on a crew yet. We run 5-man crews in Illinois, so I've pretty much been equal at short wings. I've done back judge a couple of games, and I'm 6'7", 340, so it's pretty funny to see a giant back judge like that out there. But some umpire, everything but white hat so far. Yeah.
6'7", 340. Attaboy. I thought I'm 6'3". I just lost a little pounds here and there, but
yeah,
that
well, that's why
guy.
It's always funny when I talk to a coach.
Get a couple
you guys have the
interceptions
pleasure of
here
seeing
and
the
there.
biggest back judge you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, welcome to the fraternity, my friend. We love that you decided to throw the stripes on, and welcome. And we're kind of here for you tonight and for all the other newer officials that are out there. We're going to kind of lean on Eric for some of his guidance and questions that he may have for us experienced people. And like I said, we got people of all different levels. Myself, I was talking pre-record. I redid my math because I'm a phys ed teacher. I'm not a math teacher, so I can't lie. I redid my math, and this is my 9th season that we're working in right now, and hopefully not concluding just yet. I had a game this past weekend. I know, Terrence, you had a game this past weekend here in New Jersey. We're in our playoff round, so we don't find out our assignments now until usually Tuesday or Wednesday for the next coming games, because now we're at the state association level. But I'm an umpire. I used to be a side judge. I'm also a referee too. So I've got a lot of different experiences. Started off as a deep guy, a back judge on a 5-man crew my first couple of games. And like I said, I'm a former offensive lineman. So being back there at center field, it was a little different for me being back there, to say the least. So jumped to the short wing, and now I'm in the middle with all the old hog mollies with the defensive line and offensive line, and enjoying it in there, even though I did kind of get I did set another nice pick this past Friday night. Linebacker wasn't too appreciative of it, but it's the nature of the game, man. You want to run a mesh route in front of me, you better run it tight.
Right.
So now, excuse me, Eric, you've got college guys, high school guys. Terrence, you work any of the youth games around here still too?
Yes, I do.
All right. So you got head referees, head linesmen, back judges. What kind of questions, what kind of challenges did you face? You said this is your first year on the field. So give me, what was one of the hardest things that you had to get used to? And let's see if we could kind of help you out and guide you.
The first challenge was once
in your
I decided
experiences
to actually be an official. I go to our IHSA website. I sign up. I get licensed. I attended the clinics and everything I could, because I didn't want to look stupid out there once I decided to do it. So anything I can get involved with clinic wise, so many YouTube videos. Your podcast was a big help for me. One of the things was actually getting assignments for games. So I joined a couple associations. I think I heard it through some advice, and assignments are always looking for somebody. So that was one of the things that I think was difficult as a new official. When I do talk to first years, like, well, I'm doing it, how do I get games? So I just want to mention, if anybody is listening, thinking about doing it, make sure you do reach out to local assigners, send them a nice email, introduce yourself, volunteer for youth and JV freshman games. I always heard you didn't really do a varsity game your first year. I did 7 of them. So with the shortage. So that was interesting. But as far as questions, I know the big question I'm going to have right now. So as a fill-in crew member, I have been offered some crews to join crews, some newer, some maybe, more experienced officials. But how did you guys know, what crew you'd want to join? Did you just have some buddies that you all got along with? Did you meet people? Did it take you a few years before you did it? Or how did you become part of a crew?
Dan, I'm going to defer to you on the first one here.
Okay, well, that's interesting when I hear you talk about choice, because in my world, pretty much the assigner put me where he wanted me. And in our association, we don't, there are de facto crews, but no one is actually declared a crew officially throughout the year. There are maybe referees and umpires that work together often. That's a pretty tight on-field relationship, and it really affects game management, game flow. So that often happens. But other than that, to be honest with you, I have never really come across a situation, at different years, different times, different assigners did try. And I've never been an assigner, don't really want to be an assigner. It seems like an extremely stressful job. And they would try and create crews, and it always seemed to fall apart. So I don't know if that was a numbers thing. I don't know what that was. So myself, I can say that I ended up on crews. I didn't choose. I can name 3 referees that I spent most of my career with in 3 or 4 year increments. But in the past couple of years, I've actually been bouncing around because the referee I was with retired. And the last 2 years, I've kind of I had a referee last year consistently. So it's not something of my choice, which is interesting from your perspective. NCAA also, Joel can speak to this at I mean, the FBS level. You guys are crews. I don't know D2 if they locked you in. D3, and my experience as a D3 official, it's been attempted as well, but our coordinator has had difficulty keeping a crew together, so I often work on different crews throughout the year.
Joel, how is it with the college level where you're at?
Well, yeah, at the college level, pretty much you are, once you get in and you're fully on staff, you're pretty much assigned a crew by the assigner. And
now, did you have any choice of what crew you may have wanted to go to or anything like that, or how did it work in that aspect for you?
I did not. Yeah, and this go even back to Division II, NCAA Division II. I worked in the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and my first full year on staff when I had a quote full schedule, and I think I had like 8 games that year, but I was just placed on a crew, and then you just go from there, and hopefully, everyone gets along, and which we did. I mean, it's a bunch of great guys, and Eric, when you're in this long enough, you will realize that you're going to make some great friends in this avocation, lifelong friends, and every once in a while you'll come across some guys that maybe rub you the wrong way, or you don't really like to work with them, but I will tell you that's an exception. Most of the guys and gals now that you work with are going to be great, because we're all in this together. I mean, this is it's a community, it's a brotherhood, and so as far as picking, it's one of those things where if you would have a chance to work with some of these people in lower level games, you would kind of get an idea how they work, and how you would mesh with them as a crewmate. But chances are you may not get that opportunity, so you may want to just kind of maybe talk to people. But I would imagine that whatever crew you decide to go on, it's going to work, and I think you're going to love it.
Good stuff. So now Terrence and I, we're not only from the state of New Jersey, we're actually in the same association, but I've been in, I think, about 5 more years than you have, TK. So I know how it went for me. And Terrence, if you could you jump in on this too. So my first year, we didn't take the test until December. So my first year, when I decided that I wanted to be an official, when I got out of the coaching ranks and be an official, I was taking the course during the football season, and we were working youth games and junior varsity and freshman games. We were allowed to be on the field with an older, more experienced. We were considered cadets. And for varsity games, we were only allowed to hold the chains. So we weren't allowed to be on the field our first year. Now, this year, I know that I've worked with a number of first-year officials that they actually moved the class up and they take their test prior to the season beginning. So they are technically carded officials. And they are working the field, but there were 2 games in the middle of the year that we worked with somebody who was their first time stepping on a varsity field, let alone holding chains and stuff like that. So, Terrence, how did it work when you came through the system?
Well, my last year coaching at Long Branch, I was in a cadet class, so I was teaching, coaching, and doing the cadet class. My instructors were Kevin Fleming and Chris Shelnup, which apparently I'm on Chris's crew. This is my first year on Chris's crew. So I took the test like you did in December, and then we were doing AYF games. I was holding chains when I wasn't coaching. If I had a bye week or a Saturday, and then jumping into AYF and Pop Warner, just they just threw me in the fire. And then while I'm in class, I got a couple offers. They was like, hey, listen, we're gonna be hush hush about it. You pass the test. I wind up on Steve Rimshere's crew, which he's now in Central Jersey. But I was on Steve's crew once I passed the test. He had an older crew, and they helped me tremendously. They was like, listen, when the first time we were together, they said, we're taking the training wheels off you. You're either gonna sink or you're gonna swim. And I was a fast learner. Being a coach, you pick up a lot of stuff, in the class. And I'm a more of a visual learner. So when we were in class, Kevin and Chris would just read us a lot of stuff. And then when you get in the field, you're like, all right, this is what they're talking about. This is what I need to be. This is what I need to do. So once they took those training wheels off me, that first couple of games, I was a deer in the headlight. But being a coach, it really helped me. It really helped me out a lot. And I'm year 4 now, and I'm on Chris Shelnut's crew.
Yeah, now, Eric, I can honestly say my first year just being on the chains, I actually kept a notebook because here in New Jersey, we do have the opportunity of being with a crew. There you go. And in the notebook, if I held the chains on a Friday night with the crew, I would go back and I would list the members of that crew and things that because I always like to hold the box. I was one of the few people, all the veterans are like, oh, I don't want to hold the box. I always wanted to hold the box because I was always having the ability to be in the ear of the sideline official, the short wing. So it was a great way for me to learn. Some people, oh, it's too much running, whatever. That's part of the game. So I always liked having the box, and I would talk with them and try to get a feel for different crews because there are different dynamics with different crews. And some people, I really liked the way that they managed the game. Other people, I was like, that they might not be my cup of tea. And like Terrence, I had a long history of coaching, and so I knew a lot of the officials as a coach, and now as an official, I know some of the coaches now that I'm officiating for. So I got to learn the different dynamics and different things like that. So like you, I was approached, and like Terrence, I was approached by a couple different head referees saying, hey, we got some people retiring, or we're going to go in a different direction. We'd like you to come on board. And I went back to my notebook and I'm like, all right, this crew I really liked. Okay, so that's where I ended up going my first couple of years. Then I got offered, I'm on my second crew myself. I got offered a different spot because, like I said, I was a short wing. I got offered to be an umpire with the current crew that I'm with now. And being the former offensive lineman, I love being in the mix. So that's why I kind of went from one crew to the other crew in that aspect. And to me, it was beneficial because now it's given me, Joel, I think you had mentioned it, or Daniel, I think you'd mentioned it. The dynamic that I have with the head referee, it's nothing like I love the wings, and I don't take anything away from the wings, but I love that he and I are in the middle of the field, and we joke around. We're controlling the tempo of the game, and that's it's. I feel more involved back as when I was a coach, so that's kind of what made me go in that direction. But my recommendation is feel it out. If you guys do have set crews, make sure that you're going to be comfortable with the crew, and that you can see yourself with the future with that crew, to be honest with you. Now, in the college cases, you guys are kind of I know, Joel, you said you were lucky enough to get that big call up. And so they called you up and say, you're going to XYZ crew. And your answer was probably, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Yep.
Mike, another thing I did when, like you said, on a Friday night or Saturday, when I'm holding chains, like I ask 1,000 questions. It's like when I became an educator, the people, hey, I'm going to ask you 1,001 questions. And then halftime, I would go in my phone, I would write what the conversation.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and if I can interject quickly, so Terrence, that's a great point, and I would tell Eric, don't be afraid to reach out. 99% of the guys will be more than happy to talk to you, either via text or email. Reach out. When you if you go to a clinic and you hear someone speak, or you meet some guys, get their contact info, and I will tell you, if you reach out with a question or questions about mechanics, philosophies, rules, I'm telling you, they'll get back to you. It happens to me all the time. I love talking football with anybody. Some of the younger guys at our study meetings, they'll shyly come up and say, hey, do you mind if I have questions, can I get a hold of you? I'm like, absolutely. I was like, please do. Of course, me and the other veterans say, hey, we're not gonna reach out to you. That's your job to reach out to us, but then we will absolutely, bring you along. Because that's what I did when I was coming up through. I was the same as Terrence. Ask 1,000 questions, because if you don't ask, if no one else asks, then no one knows the answer. And so yeah, I would, take Terrence's advice and ask a ton of questions and reach out to whomever you want. I'm sure they'll engage with you.
100%. And like I said earlier, starting this podcast, and Joel, you asked me how did I find Joel?
Yeah,
I just I went looking around. I went fishing and seeing who I can talk with, and like he said, 99% of the people are and people that have turned down coming on to be guests. It's usually, hey, Mike, I'd love to be on, but I've got a game that night, or something like that. And everybody has been very amenable to and helping me in this journey to try to help everybody else in the journey. So it's been an awesome experience. And like we said, we're all in this together. We're all out there with the stripes. We're the third team. So we're all trying to get this game as great as it can be. So now, Eric, here's a question for you. Confidence-wise, that first time you were out on the field, how did you feel with that? And be honest with it, because I know how I felt the first time I was back there. And Joel and Dan are kind of snickering right now because we've all been there. So how did you feel confidence-wise? And when you have that whistle in your hand, knowing that whistle is going to kill the play, right or wrong, that whistle's going to stop the play.
So I attended.
How did you feel doing that? I got my
license. I attended a boot camp clinic that was supposed to have a live scrimmage, but we had threat of severe weather, so the teams backed out. So the clinicians took us down on the field, and they tried their best to break us in positions and kind of walk us through. And I had volunteered for a semi-pro game that summer by accident, but I ended up getting accepted to it. So I made sure I told the head ref, I'm like, hey, my first game ever. He just laughed, and he's like, we just go out and have some fun, trying not to take too much crap from the guys. So he was real cool about it. But I mean, stepping on that field, I worked umpire. I don't think I threw my flag, and I knew blowing the whistle wasn't my job as an umpire. So that kind of made me feel better. Because I didn't have forward progress or anything like that with how they set it up. But just getting through that first game, I mean, definitely. And the semi-pro level is a little bit different than high school. I mean, those guys are, there's some foul language and there's some stuff going on with that the people told me afterwards, it's not always like this. And then my first high school game I did, that game, a coach had tackled a player out of bounds or something from the other side, and then we had to eject that coach. And then my first high school game. Yeah.
A coach tackled the player out of bounds. I got to interrupt you. Say that again.
And the coach, I didn't see it, though. Our wing saw it, but he somehow threw him to the ground or something. They had to eject the coach. And then my first.
No. Were you officiating Woody Hayes?
And then my first high school game,
I admire you for
working a
doing
wing,
semi-pro, brother.
and
That's
I
wow.
was trying to control my sideline as best I can. I dropped a sideline warning with them being, in the restricted zone. So I didn't really want to, be that mean about it, my first time out, because I wasn't, you're lacking the confidence to kind of do that stuff. But that coach ended up being out on the field. The umpire told him, "Coach, get off the field." He threw an explicative at him, so the umpire threw him out. So my first 2 games had coaches ejected. So, and then I'm like, I played football for 15 years and never a coach was ever ejected. So I'm like, is this how it's going to be? But, yeah, those are my first 2 games.
Well, thank you for sticking it out, because that's definitely getting thrown right into the fire. Holy crow. Well, I can tell you my oh yeah, it was easy, I'm sure. You find some wood to knock on, because you don't want to jinx it. I can honestly tell you, like my first 2 games when I cadetted, and I was talking before, all the games that I cadetted for here in New Jersey were 6-person crews. And when I got involved in the association, there was still 2 5-man crews that were around, because some of the schools didn't want to pay for the 6-person. So they were still doing some 5-person games. And I got put as a back judge on a 5-man crew for my first 2 varsity games on the field. I didn't watch a 5-man crew the previous year at all. So I was completely like diving into the mechanics manual that the night before. And I ended up having a pretty big DPI penalty that I had to throw in my first game. And we didn't have huddle back in the day. So guys on the chains, like at halftime, I'm like, was I on that one? Did I have that one? They're like, yeah, good call. I'm like, oh, thank God. Because I was, like you said, I was nervous I had that flag so far deep, I had to like reach for it 6 times. And well, today, as an umpire, I have that thing so far deep, I'm not reaching for it often. I'm kind of letting them play football a little bit in the middle. So I don't like to throw many flags, and I spit that whistle out once that ball is snapped. But listen, it's a learning experience, and the nerves and jitters are still there. And TK, you're an educator like myself. That first time standing up in front of the classroom, how did you feel? It's kind of the same nervous jitters that you get, huh? So Joel, Big Ten, where was your first game?
My first Big Ten game.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, when I was in the Mid American Conference, I got a little taste. I guess it wasn't a Big Ten conference game, but I worked Northwestern at Syracuse, so it was a travel game with a Big Ten crew. So I think maybe that was kind of like an audition, because then I was in the league, the next year full time. But my first actual conference game was Wisconsin, Nebraska, and that was Nebraska's first year in, and so that was I remember college game day was there because it was Nebraska's, and that was their first Big Ten game.
Yep.
And now, trust me, I wasn't on the game because I was an outstanding official. You have to understand that it's about the crew chief at that level. So I was lucky enough. My first 3 years in the Big Ten, I was with Bill LeMonnier. So many of you are probably familiar with Bill. He's now an analyst. But I was on his crew, and so just riding his coattail. I mean, and talk about a phenomenal official and just a great human being. Learned a ton from Bill. He's a great teacher, but yeah, I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. And going along with Terrence, you have to have that mindset. Like, you know what? I'm here for a reason. I belong here. Was I scared to death? Yes, I was. Absolutely. But you have to have a little introspection, and you have to realize, hey, I wouldn't have made it here if I wasn't a darn good official. And there's a reason I'm here. And so, there's a lot of self-talk that goes in. You got to believe in yourself. So just to piggyback on what Terrence said, you at some point you got to realize this is where I should be. I belong here. And now I'm going to go out and I'm going to officiate this game like I know I can.
Yeah.
Did I make mistakes? Yeah, we make mistakes every game. The key is, do you learn from the mistakes? That's the whole key, and just try not to make that same mistake again. But you're going to make mistakes every game. No, there's no official that has worked a perfect game ever. And if an official says he or she has, they're lying to you, because I guarantee if we analyze their film, we could find something. Maybe no one else would see it, whether it's a mechanic or something. But no official has worked a perfect game. So Eric, don't think you're ever going to.
Yeah, you're going to work a lot of good games, but there's always something that you can definitely improve upon. So and always take that. Once you think you know everything, you don't, and you'll find out usually the hard way. Unfortunately, if you go in there too cocky, and especially that damn kicking game is going to find a way to get you. So Dan, talking to you, you're a rules interpreter.
I am, yes.
So you're seeing the rule changes coming every year, coming down from Indianapolis here with the NFHS and stuff like that. What kind of tips do you have to our newer officials, such as Eric, on staying on top of different things like that, different changes that we've been dealing with?
And well, a couple different things. I think one thing that Terrence said that jumped out at me, that I have heard from some of the more veteran rules guys above me in NCAA, is that they see kind of an over-reliance on everybody watching film and not getting in the book. And it needs to be both. You definitely need video. You definitely need visual to understand what you just read or took notes on. But you really need to develop your own note-taking, your own shorthand. You really need to get into the book. And one thing that I heard years ago at a clinic from an NFL guy, Coach Hill. And what he said is that, usually once the season started for him, he was diving in the rule book all winter long, all off season. And then during the season, he'd jump in the case book on a regular basis. And I love that, because that was something as a new guy I never thought about. I was so always looking rule book. And then I started incorporating the case book, and like, oh, okay, because the case book, whether it's the ARs and NCAA or the case book and NFHS, these are probably things that have happened. Mm-hmm. So that's a great teaching tool. The rule is what you ought to do if A, B. The case book, okay, this thing happened and here's what you do. So that's one thing I would say. Don't forget, with the video is the rule book. Don't forget the case book. It's a great tool. But in your early years, to be honest with you, Eric, the first, 2-3 years, if you can, I would focus on mechanics. Because my phrase, and I can't turn this into a bumper sticker, but officiating is You need to be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, looking at what you should be looking at, when you should be looking at it. And if you do that, and a coach sends in a piece of tape to your coordinator or to your signer, that coordinator is going to say, Coach, he was where he was supposed to be, and he was looking where he was supposed to be looking at, and he judged it to be not a foul, or he judged it to be DPI. That, I coach him. It's a judgment call. I can't be mad at him. He was in position. So that's going to help you long term in your career. And I definitely would say in the early years, focus on mechanics. The other guys on the crew are going to know the rules. And yes, you should know the rule. And yes, ideally, when you report, you're going to report to the R, just like the R is going to turn around to the TV and say it. But in your early years, man, mechanics are gonna save you.
Oh gosh, thank you very much for saying that, Dan, because I'm a huge believer in that. Eric, that's what slows the game down for you. When you're in the right spot, those penalties jump out at you and you see it. And that's when you know, okay, I'm going to throw the flag there. But if you're scanning all over the place or you're not in the right position and you see something peripherally that looks like a foul, I'm not throwing a flag on that because I didn't see it clearly. And if I didn't see it clearly because I was in the wrong position, that's on me. But like Dan said, it's a judgment play. Now I'm an umpire. I'm looking for holding all the time. I've thrown 2 holding penalties this season so far. I don't throw many holding penalties. I'd rather get in the huddle and communicate with the kids and talk with the kids and let them play football from that aspect. And I talk to the defense about it too. Hey, listen, you're not fighting to get off. I saw it, but you're not fighting to do anything to get off. I'm not gonna throw that. If you're fighting and I see the pull tug, yeah, I'm gonna throw that. But let's all play football. But now my mechanics, my focus is still there. I had a chop block 2 weeks ago. This past week, I had my first tripping call that I've thrown. The defender dove past the ball carrier, missed him, and leg whipped the ball carrier and tripped him. This was a home run. This was a touchdown if this kid didn't get tripped. And I threw the flag on that one because I was in the right spot and I was focused on where I was supposed to focus on. And when I went to report it, I'm like, "Oh, we got a tripping." He's like, "On who?" I'm like, "He tripped the ball carrier." He's like, "So?" I'm like, "They changed that rule 2 years ago." He's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So we had a tripping call, and it's the first one that I've ever thrown. I was like, all right, got something new here. So yeah, just being in the right position, it opens up the field of play and it slows it down for you. Joel, you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree completely. I think Dan is on the mark here. That if you're in the right spot, looking where you need to be when you're supposed to be looking there, then at least you can make the call, and most of the time you can be supported from a higher up because they're gonna, they watch the film and say, hey, he's looking where he's supposed to be looking, and in his judgment, this is what he saw from his angle, and then they can say, Coach, based on the film where you are, you had a different angle, so maybe it looked different to you, but I'm going to support my guy. And then to piggyback on Mike, he said the key, allow the fouls to jump out at you. We don't want to be calling ticky-tack stuff. Mike says he's called 2 holdings all season. I would say that's pretty darn good, right? Because if this part of the season he's had 16 holding fouls, we would go back and look and see how many of those were legitimate fouls, and probably most of them weren't. So, I can't take credit for this, but I heard somebody.
Minutia. Joe, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm really curious about holding, and just from an NCAA perspective, I heard years and years ago, as a piece of advice, maybe for Eric too, that now the downgrading system for me, or the grading system for me in D3 is different than for the FBS. But I was told from FBS that the point value for throwing a hold that wasn't there, you lose more points than if you miss a hold that might have been there. So
interesting.
That's the philosophy I was told. Like, dude, okay, if you miss one, okay, somebody will say something. If you throw a phantom hold, you will hear it, and it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And and very quickly, and I can't take credit for this. I'll give credit to Dino Paganelli, who's a NFL back judge. He just said this the other day on one of his training tapes. He says some of the best calls that you will make in officiating are the ones without a flag. Mm-hmm. And when he said that, I'm like, that is absolutely true, right? Because we can do so much as officials, preventive officiating. You know, Mike talked about how he loves to talk to the players. You know, you see something, you know, you see a block, right? And it's a little ugly. It doesn't quite rise to the level of a hold, but I guarantee Mike probably gets in there at first opportunity and says, hey, number 67, that was an ugly block. Let's try to clean it up, because if the runner comes by here, right, then I probably got you. You know, if you're at the point of attack. And so we can do so much more without throwing the flag, but you know, those are considered, you know, correct calls, even though we didn't actually call something. And boy, that goes a long way in officiating football and being successful.
Mike, I hate to jump in again, but that was huge. Joel, I absolutely, the second part of what you said, not only do you not throw it, but you go to the player and you let the player know, I saw it.
Yeah.
Yep. Don't do that again. And that is huge. That goes, that's great advice, Joel. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of offensive linemen saying, hey, like you said, 67, you got to work those hands inside. And I'm on the defensive side of the ball. I don't know, Eric, where you are in Illinois, where the umpire is, because I know there's talks about putting the U in the offensive backfield. But when the defensive kid is complaining to me, I'm being held. If I'm addressing 67, I'm saying it loud enough that the defense hears me say, 67, you need to work your hands inside, so they know that, okay, he saw it, because now here, 67 may also be playing defense, and the kid that is on defense is probably playing offensive line on the other side of the ball. So now they know, all right, this guy saw it. He's going to address it. Might not flag it the first time, but he's going to address it. So now he knows that I know that he knows that I know, and you go that whole route, but everybody now knows that I know. So it like I said, I hate taking that flag out unless it's a safety foul or it's something that's truly at the point of the attack and having an effect on the play. We just got clinicked. Terrence, I don't know if you were in on this one, because it was more of kind of for the umpires with the point of the attack and the holding penalties. But like you said, Dan, the ones we don't throw are usually going to be graded higher than the one you do throw, and that's not truly there. And with the holding penalties, like I need to be able, as a former coach, and TK, you could attest to this as a former coach, I need to know that in my mind, I can walk over to the sideline and say, Coach, this is what I saw and why. And not just sell it, because I don't want to be a salesman, but I am saying it with the utmost confidence. Your kid did X, Y, and Z. That's why they got flagged. If I can't say that in my own head before I throw the flag, I'm not going to throw it. And it's something that I've taught myself, and just like everybody has said, getting that experience, getting on the field and doing it, like Dan was mentioning. The film is awesome, but just getting as much experience on the field too, and working those youth games and just getting involved as much as you can is just going to make you a better official every single day.
And then Dan, I like what you said, you know, when you go to the coach and you say, well, yeah, or even as the play develops in your mind, you're saying, okay, did he do X, Y, Z? Yes, he did, you know, and then you throw the flag. So Eric, what I would tell you is slow down. And of course that comes from working reps. I mean, work as much as you can, because the game will slow down for you, guaranteed. Yep. But, you know, there's a phrase that I've heard for the past 30 years, let your mind digest what your eyes have seen. So you see something, you don't have to bring that flag out of your pocket right now. You know, the nice thing about football is we can let things kind of develop. And if you throw the flag a few seconds later than what you think, it feels like forever that it's a late flag. But when you watch it on film, it just flows. You know, so like, you know, Mike has this potential hold. It's a red flag. It's like, oh, he's got him. He's not letting him go. His feet are beat. Oh, the runner's going right by. Now there's a jersey pull, shoulder dip. And now Mike can throw that flag out. He's been watching that for like 3 seconds, but letting it marinate in his mind. And then he decides, yes, that's big enough. That's a foul. There's a restriction. There's an unfair advantage gained by this player and by his action. So I need to throw that. Right. And so, let your mind digest what your eyes have seen. Just slow down mentally before you pull the trigger on throwing that yellow hanky out there.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I was probably the same way. As I worked Monday would be freshman games, Thursday JV, Friday. Some schools would do a freshman, then the varsity game. So I'd have 2 games there, then 4 or 5 youth games on Saturday, 2 on Sundays. So it's funny, youth games too. So I could go from a Friday night filling on a crew, hearing, "Oh, you guys were great. You're doing a great job," from the coaches. Then I go to a youth game on Saturday and I, kill a punt because the kicking team recovers the punt, runs it down for a touchdown, and I'm killing it. And the coach's like, "He can't return that?" Like, what? What are? And he's out there screaming at me about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think midway through youth season, I was like, I can't. It was tough. It was too many arguing about stuff that was obvious to me. And then I realized I had to pay their parents, they're volunteering, like have a little bit more patience with it. And then I used it more as a learning tool, those Saturday and Sunday JFL games for the high school games, just, mechanics, more preventive officiating,
100%.
Talk to the coaches more, explain stuff a little bit better, take my time. If I see the foul, say the foul to myself, say the number that committed the foul, then I throw the flag. So that was definitely great advice for new officials. It's definitely those youth games. So that's, a lot of crazy stuff does happen in those.
And I could tell you, my son's playing youth football now, so I stopped officiating the youth games just as a conflict of interest, but I'll still do the freshman and JV games. And I could tell you that those games are a rules test in their own right. That is an on the field test, because the freshman coaches, and especially the JV coaches, and I used to love going down, because it was a varsity coaching staff where I was coaching. And then on Monday, they're like, "Mike, we need you to go to with the JV guys this week, go down." And on the bus ride down, we're like, "Can anybody hear long snap?" And you're literally drawing plays up in the dirt when you got the group of JV kids, because it's the holdovers who haven't played Friday or Saturday. So, but it is a legitimate test each and every game, because the coaches are kind of just making stuff up with the kids and just trying to keep the kids' interest. So, prime example, I had an onside kick. All of a sudden, there were 10 kids on one side of the K. And I'm like, wait a minute. He's like, "Oh, I was hoping you didn't catch that." I'm like, "Yeah, no, we can't do that. You can't." It was literally K and then 10. I'm like, nope, not happening. But they'll try those different things to see if you're paying attention and see if you got away with it. So it's that rules test all over again, just happening in real time. So now we're coming close to that hour time mark. So I don't want to hold everybody up here, because it is a Sunday night. So I got one last thing that I would like to throw out there for you, Eric. And Terrence, you brought this up earlier. John Devaney, I'm going to say his name. I just got to work with John again this past Friday. John and Terrence were on the same crew together. John was that individual, ironically, that when I was talking about that first defensive pass interference, he was on the chains that game. He was a cadet that year. And I went over to him like, "John, what'd you think?" He's like, "No, you definitely had that." My recommendation, and where my story is leading to, is try to find a mentor. Try to find somebody that you can entrust and call and say, "Hey, listen, I had this happen on Friday night." And again, it's a huge fraternity. It could be any of us sitting here tonight with you on this meeting, or it could be somebody that you're working with, somebody, if you do get on a crew, that you can confide in and say, hey, I think I may have missed this one. And just being able to have that voice back there, find somebody that you can truly trust, and that's going to tell you, Eric, you screwed that one up, or Eric, great call, or great no call, whatever way it may be. But find somebody that you can truly trust. Again, be it somebody on your crew or something like that. I really think that's something that is really beneficial to younger officials to bounce stuff off. Dan is the rules interpreter in Pennsylvania. I know I've called up our state rules interpreter. We were lucky enough. This is his second year that he's not from our association, but there were times I would call him up and I trusted him. I'm like, Bill, I had this on Friday night. What do you think? And I'd walk him through, and he was a great mentor for me. And then my first white hat. So I don't know if you guys have anything that you want to add with that, with mentors and stuff like that.
Just echo. Yeah, you're going to find, and I think to Joel's point in terms of, I know that, and it's great to have multiple states here. And I know just from talking to some to you folks across the river, that Jersey is a more, I don't know, active situation with mentoring. I think with I'm more along the lines with Joel. It's like anybody I asked would readily, answer any question and talk with me at length, because we both love to geek out about football. But I had to do it. I had to take that step. And, it wasn't that they weren't going to talk to me. It's just, that's when you're going to get the best response. When you expressed interest, you're going to get a great reaction, because that's a great sign. Somebody wants to know, well, if I'm going to take time, I want to know somebody cares. Boom. He came to me. She came to me. More than happy to talk. So they and that's great advice, Mike. For someone a veteran or somebody, anybody, Eric, just somebody you like, somebody you trust. Yeah, definitely work with them as much as you can.
Joe. Yep. Joel?
Yeah, I agree with both Dan and Terrence, and I would add that make sure you are receptive to the feedback. Don't don't ask a question that you're hoping that you're getting the pat on the back, when in fact sometimes you might be getting some constructive criticism to make you better.
Yeah.
Don't be defensive about it. You need to be open. And and to Mike's point, if you find somebody that you can get along with and that you trust, right, and then they trust you, and then they'll be willing to be completely honest with you, and they'll tell you, hey, you screwed that up, and here's why. You're out of position, or do you need to get in the rule book, because you kick that rule, and so you need to be receptive to that, and just understand that we're trying to help each other. We're trying to make each other better. And so, yeah, definitely reach out to people. But then when you get the feedback coming back to you, then absorb it.
All right, Eric. One last question. What do you got for us? Us seasoned vets. What's one thing that's been on your mind during the season that you're like, oh gosh, yeah, pull that notebook out. What do you got for us? I'm sure you got some questions in there.
I will go with controlling your sideline. How I think that's just the biggest thing. Like how if you guys work in wings, the short wings, just keeping coaches back, players back, it's one thing, but just keeping the coaches back in their box. Have you guys ever had, warning? Have you seen coaches, hey, you're done type thing? But
I want to jump on this one first, so I'm going to be selfish on this one. The easiest way to control your sidelines is get in the middle of the field.
It's funny you say that, Mike, because I jump in. Long story short, 40 years ago and 60 pounds ago, I was a small school lineman. And I actually thought when I first came up, I'd love umpire. I did work once or twice in the hole. I hated it, dude. I hated it. I love the wing. 90% of my work is the wing. I love just everything that goes on over there. So Eric, the sideline, I totally get it. You're going to get better every year, and it's a matter of you communicate to a point. You talk to them before the game, sure. The get back coach, it depends on the level that you're at. And to be honest with you, I don't rely on the get back coach.
No.
I like if they call somebody a get back coach, that's nice. It's me. And, you just call it out. You work at that first series, that second series. Some are better, some are worse. And you tell them, coach, I need you out of the white. I need you out of the box. I need you back. And after so much, give them the free flag. Give them the free flag. You throw it. Usually you throw it. I will pick a time, the play is over. I'll throw it and I'll just go into my R. I'll get on the 0-2-0. And I'll just say, Ray, sideline warning. I'm going to talk to him. And that's it. And I'll say to him, and some of them react worse than others, but you've tried. Use your voice, like Mike uses his voice in the middle. We use our voice on the side. But after a while, the flag is the loudest voice you have. And in my mind, the second one, I know in high school it's 0, 5, and 15. At college, you get the 2 5s, 0, 5, 5, 15. My attitude, I talk to them. They don't get back. I throw the free one. After that, I mean, if I hit you, I hit you. Maybe that's the wrong attitude. And I used to laugh with my larger, heavier colleagues. And now if you're on the wing, brother, you hit a coach, he's going down. I'm 5'10", 162. I hit a coach, I'm going down.
Right.
So, there are times, depending, again, you're going to learn game management, game situation. Out of the corner of my eye, okay, I had to kind of avoid you. Okay. I've thrown a 5-yarder. But if I had a hard plant and spin to save my life to avoid hitting you, well, it's 15. And I had a coach. He said, well, wait, no, what about, it's 5. You can't, it's 5. Coach, that was interference. That was straight
safety
up
issue.
Interference. And like I said, there's so many stories we all have. And being on the wing and when it worked and didn't and hitting guys. And it takes time, but in general, that's my advice. You're going to use your voice. First series, second series, but then just throw it and calmly. Don't be mad. Don't be angry. Just toss it. Come back quietly, coach. I try to tell you, I need you back.
Eric, one piece of advice, and I said that one in jest before, but there were times where I'm so worried about the sideline that I missed a call.
Yeah.
So the sideline took me out of my mechanic because I'm worried if I'm going to run into somebody. And that was my answer to the coach. I'm like, coach, get your team back. You want to know something? I probably did miss that hold on the wing to the toss sweep coming to my sideline. I said, because I'm looking out for my safety. I said, if I have to look to see where your guys are for my safety, I'm going to do that over a holding penalty. I said, I'm sorry. So keep your guys back. Allow me to do my job, and I'll get that for you. I said, but if I got to worry about you, I can't get that too. I said, I don't have that many eyes. I'm sorry. And they're like, oh, okay. And from that point on, that coach, the entire game, that head coach was on his team. Get back, everybody back up, let them work. So Ooh. Correct.
Joel, can I ask
Nope.
you a question on this? Jump in as a deep. How many times do you help your short? Do you throw sideline?
I've thrown a few, but to be honest, at our level, it's pretty good. To be honest, it really is. And it doesn't take much for us. And you're always professional. You're polite. You keep your emotions out of it. But you're like, coach. This is my space. Allow me to work. We need you back, and they're usually good. A lot of times, and I think Dan, I think you said it. If you're gonna throw a flag, even though it's a freebie, wait for a good time to do it, right? So that way they're not that emotionally charged, even though there's no yardage. Sometimes maybe there was a turnover, and your team was the one that got the fumble recovery or the interception. So now they're happy, right? And then maybe that's the time you bang them for that sideline warning. Maybe not on that play, but the play before, and you've already warned them a few times. If you can, now obviously you can't wait forever for the quote right time, but if the right time shows up really quickly, bang with the flag, even though it's a freebie, they're already happy because, they made a stop, they got a fumble recovery and interception, then it kind of softens the blow with that, because that yellow flag, those coaches go ballistic when that hits the ground, especially when they don't know what it's for. So, you try to pick your timing if possible. It's not always possible.
And last thing, and then we'll start wrapping this up, Eric. The biggest recommendation throughout the entire game, no matter where you are, and this is from the middle of the field to the sidelines to the white hat. It's just being able to communicate. Use your voice. Communicate with the coaches. Communicate with the players. Just your ability to communicate and talk and give them an explanation, or say, Coach, I'll get back to you when we got a downtime at a timeout and explain what I saw. Just being able to communicate makes the coach's mind feel at ease. It's the egos that sometimes get in our way as the official coach, because that's what I saw. And no, explain, Coach, I had a hold because of, like we said, X, Y, and Z. And being able to communicate, they're typically going to be on your side, even when the crap does hit the fan. For the most part, again, I was on that sideline too, so I understand as the coaching aspect. For the most part, if you're able to communicate and have a conversation and explain to them on the middle of the field, talking with them, preventative officiating goes so much farther than you can possibly imagine of making the game run smoothly. And that's what our goal is we joke around. My goal is to spot the ball and roll the clock and get everybody home safely. But in essence, that's really what I want to do. So, all right, gentlemen. So we've hit the 108 mark now. So we're over an hour. I apologize for keeping everybody so long, but I think we could have been on here talking football for another 2-3 hours. It seems like. So one last time, guys, if you want to just quickly again introduce yourself and where people could possibly find you, what state association you're working
so I'm in
with.
Central
Eric,
Illinois,
I'm going to start with you this time.
in
Where are you
between
located?
Springfield or Capital in Chicago, kind of the north central area. So I'm a part of the Peoria Area Officials Association, the Bloomington Normal Officials Association, and then the MIBT Online. That's an online clinic that I'm a member of as well.
So any of my Illinois officials that are out there, anybody interested in Illinois, reach out to Eric. He'll be able to guide you in the right direction. Joel, how about you?
Yep. Well, I live in Northern Ohio at Fremont, and I still have my high school permit through the OHSA. I actually worked 2 high school games this season, so on my off weekends. So it's always fun to be a part of that. But I'm a member of the COC, the Collegiate Officiating Consortium, which that's the umbrella for the Big Ten Conference, the Mid-American Conference, and the Missouri Valley Football Conference. And, joelclay2011@gmail.com. Reach out if you have questions. I'll be more than happy to talk football with you anytime.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, Eastern PA, Emmaus in the Allentown area, Lehigh Valley as it's called. I'm District 12 rules interpreter. Pennsylvania is divided into District 11. Sorry, District 11 rules interpreter. Pennsylvania is divided into 12 districts for sports. Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I get a kick out of the different terminology. Licensed, carded. We say patched. We got our patch. Yeah. That's the phrase here. So I got my patch on, NCAA, D3. If
got it right up there.
Yeah. I mean, email me. My email is, my wife always gives me a hard time. It's kind of long and hard to remember. It's danrefactor at Yahoo. The three things I do. But like I said, any PA guys, definitely they can reach me or contact me, Eric. I'm more than happy. Like I said, anybody is more than happy to help you out. But yeah, whenever. Thanks.
And last but not least, my local guy, TK. Good stuff. Guys, once again, I truly appreciate you all taking the time out tonight and jumping on this episode. I know we were supposed to record it a little earlier in the week, and then life kind of got in the way for a couple of us, so I do apologize about that. But again, thank you very much. Eric, I hope that this was beneficial for you and for all the newer officials out there. Hopefully that this was beneficial to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the football season is coming close to the end right now. Go out, recruit, get your friends, get your buddies, get other people out there. Turn them on to what we do and how much fun that we truly do have in being involved in this sport that we love. Reach out to any of us that are out there. You could always find me, Mike D, the referee, at gmail.com. Again, ladies and gents, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button, that subscribe button, hit all those fun little buttons there. And if you have to hit that thumbs down button, go for it. I'm a referee. I could take some criticism, so I got thick skin. But email me first if you like. I'd like to communicate. But guys, again, thank you very much. And last, I can't leave this out. I started the show with it. To all the veterans that are out there, if you're still listening at the hour and 12-minute mark, thank you for all that you have done for us in our country. Happy Veterans Day tomorrow. Be safe, everybody. Guys on the show, have a great rest of your season. Thank you once again.
All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.